Alrighty, let's get started. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional or medical concern or question. So we're going to hop into group in just a second. So we've got just a quick reminder that today what we're doing is another group stream. So we're working with a group of content creators to help them understand themselves a little bit better and try to help them figure out, how they can live the most successful and fulfilling lives as content creators. So we're going to go ahead and hop in. Y'all have never caught the beginning. Well, beginning is pretty chill. And, last week I thought we had a really fantastic stream. The challenge with group work is that oftentimes the first couple weeks, you don't really get into it because people are learning people are becoming comfortable and familiar with each other. And then the change starts happening. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that today, but let's hop in and take a look. Hello. Just heads up that we are live. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to debate anyone into... Okay, let me do this. Okay, there we go. And then move this over. Oh, sorry, hold on. There we go. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, not bad.
I'm doing all right. I went to this webinar thing that I just got out of, and my brain is a little fried. I took so many notes. I was trying to be as attentive as I could, but I still have energy for this, so I'm here. I made it.
Okay. Would it be okay if you didn't have energy for this?
That would probably be okay too.
Awesome. Okay, so welcome everyone. It's nice to see a couple people that we missed last week. I'm not totally fine. I know things happen, things like that, but so now we've got kind of an interesting question that I'll sort of start with. Is y'all are busy, y'all are content creators, y'all have jobs, and so it's normal for people to have stuff going on, people get sick, etc. How should we approach picking up? How do we balance picking up exactly where we left off versus sort of catching people up? What do y'all think about that?
Thinking there was a lot.
Right? So honestly, I'm not trying to shame anyone for missing things or anything like that. Like, that's going to be normal in any group setting. Not everyone can make it every week, right? So now we have a responsibility to try to figure out how do we want to handle these kinds of things. And I apologize if I'm making people feel like I'm calling them out. I'm really not. It's bound to happen, and we just need a system, right, that accommodates how busy and challenging y'all's lives can be. So
I
what do
had
you...
full intentions of watching the VOD, but between being alive and being asleep, it didn't really work out. So I apologize.
How are we going to respond to that?
It wasn't that I didn't care. It was more that I literally was asleep most of the time. I was on painkillers, which was great as far as painkillers go. But yeah.
So how...
I think that's fine. Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the purposes of the summaries and stuff that we post is that, if you missed a thing, there's at least something tangible that you can read and, sit there and like semi catch up. Cause I think it's probably inefficient if we always have to catch every person who ever is, missing all the time. And so, I mean, but at the same time, we want people to be on similar pages so that way, we're not leaving people behind either. So, but I feel like the summaries is like a good halfway compromise there where people can at least throughout the week be thinking about maybe some of the stuff that we put in the summaries. So
Great. Right. So I'm noticing that maybe Metric is feeling a little bit embarrassed or ashamed that something negative happened to him in life, but it sounds like he had, like, it's not our place to judge you whether you have a good reason or not.
I mean, that's a norm for me, so I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
Embarrassment's a baseline. I can deal with that. I'm joking. I'm sorry.
I suspect there's a kernel of truth there, but so basically, because I think summaries are great. I'm trying to figure out. So I'll start with this. So, like, what was y'all's impression of last week for people who were here? How would y'all describe it?
I feel like last week, myself, Zell, and Smirky had a realization that we've got a lot in common, and that, recognizing us, like, for me personally, it was recognizing myself in, like, what other people were saying. And I think for Zell, it was kind of like, I don't want to put words in Zell's mouth, but for Zell, it seemed like a moment of, like, a turning point, like a changing in the mindset, in the way of describing and thinking things for himself as well.
Yeah, I mean, to speak for myself, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, last week I had a lot to think about afterwards, and I felt like we kind of started to take the sort of contextualizing that we've been doing these last few weeks, and then starting to, like, more directly apply them into the actual things that, like, we feel are happening in our lives. I mean, I think I got the benefit of that last week because I think we spent a lot of time talking about some of the stuff that I shared last week. But yeah, I think what Ruby said.
Yeah, it was just very profound all around, and just kind of like, because we did dive into Zell's, story a little bit, but it was cool to kind of like find things that like resonated closely, and being able to like just sit with it in that moment and acknowledge it and be present with it, and then just kind of like go from there and just, I don't know, roll with it, bounce off of things.
Well, now I'm gonna watch the VOD regardless. So there.
Well, hold on. Yeah, go ahead, Ruby.
That this all sparked off from the homework that we realized by writing the one thing and then the other thought, that this could be endless. Like, you could turn the page and just keep writing the next thought on the next thought, and that thoughts can be almost like spiraling. Where do you stop with them? And and like Smirky said, we it's almost like, sitting with it and processing, and we deep dived more on Zell's thoughts with that, and just realizing, like, how much of that other thinking is us thinking about things outside of our control, things that are like other people, and are we actually focusing on ourselves, like, really?
Okay.
That was quite a big part.
So now I'm going to do something weird. I'm going to ask Kathy and Metric, what are y'all taking away from this? Are y'all kind of getting what they're saying, or is it kind of like half getting it? Like,
say half, maybe, like,
half.
Right?
So 2/5.
So here's the challenge. So I'm with Zell 100% that we should offer summaries and that it's a bridge. That's like literally why we do them, right? So that people feel tethered. We don't want to leave people behind. We recognize that y'all are really busy. Honestly, that's totally fine. And at the same time, what y'all just said, if you weren't there, doesn't make that much sense. Right? So this is the tricky thing. People don't realize that, like, change is about understanding. And I think someone even said last week, like, oh, like, everyone says this, but I didn't get it until today. Right? That, like, everyone kind of says, like, oh, like, Zell last week, Zell has been living his whole life. And remember Smirky with the this and then the this, right? So there's like weird stuff that, like, we develop language for, which is hard to, like, catch people up on. So Now I'm going to propose like something, okay? So this is, y'all can reject this, but I recognize that it may be hard. Y'all may not feel comfortable with this yet. So I'm going to propose that we do exactly what we did last week with Metric and Kathy. That's the best way to catch them up. We have to acknowledge that it may not go the same place, but that having a discussion about understanding who you are, where you come from, and remember, how did we help Zell realize he's been living his whole life to try to satisfy other people, right? Which is like an important realization. But how did we do that? What was the mechanism of change?
Asking questions, pointing out flawed logic.
Did we do the latter?
It was in my notes that we how to change, point out flawed logic, and to be able to laugh at it because we realized the absurdity of our own sort of like
Yeah.
preconceived notions, I guess.
Smirky, you had something you wanted to say?
Oh no, it was the asking questions thing.
So I think the key thing is, Zell, we didn't point out the flawed logic in other people. We realized the flawed logic in our own thinking, right? So that's huge. Like we can't tell Zell, like, here's how your thinking is wrong. We have to ask Zell questions until he figures out, or as Ruby figured out, she had that, moment where she was like, every paragraph I just realized. And then she's like, I just realized how I've been thinking about it wrong, which is exactly what we're shooting for. The problem is, like, that's hard to do, sort of. It's hard to point that out to people. And I realize that Kathy and Metric are getting lost even more. So, what...
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this in any way similar to Mind Over Mood? Where it's a book that I had a therapist tell me I had to use, and like when you're at your like absolute crappiest, you write exactly how you're feeling, and then you come back to it when you're feeling a little bit better, and you realize that you can like go through those thoughts and realize that's not actually true, or you kind of like debunk it because in that moment when you're feeling better, when you're a little more level, you see the way you're lying to yourself.
Smarky, Zell, Ruby?
No. This is the way you were describing it. That's what I was hearing. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So I think... Go ahead, Ruby.
I was going to say, I feel like the premise may feel the same on like the surface.
Okay.
But the realizations were I guess like the mind part over the mood part is more of the mind over the mind. It was kind of like mind over the mood. It was more of a realizing, it's like that you can't take like a horse to water and make them drink kind of thing. It was like that moment of you have to realize it for yourself and be in that moment to realize it. You can't force like someone.
I see. Okay. Understood.
Yeah, so I think let's try to show them. Right? So now I'm trying really hard to sort of capture what happened last week, and also I'm recognizing that the more I emphasize that, the more divided the group is going to become. Does that make sense? There's the last week, so that's what we have to fix. Okay? So there's going to be, so what I'd like to posit is let's go ahead and do check-ins. If y'all did homework, let's do share if you guys did homework, if y'all learned something from homework, and then if people are okay with it, we can focus a little bit more on Kathy and Metric today. And the most important people that need to be on board with that are Kathy and Metric.
I'm okay with it.
I'm fine with it as well.
Okay. And so what we're going to do is ask questions, right? And before we dive into that, do y'all remember any of our techniques? It's okay if you don't.
Like the digging into ambiguity.
Good.
And dig into the whys. Like, don't stop people from being necessarily like negative. Like, not being like.
Yep. Right. So
polite about that. Yeah.
Zell was like, "It sucks to be me," and what did we say?
Sounds like it does.
Yeah,
sounds,
right? We
Sounds
didn't
like
say,
it,
"Oh,
sounds
no,
like it
like-"
actually sucks to be you.
Yeah, we didn't say like, no, it doesn't, Zen. Like, oh my God, you're so perfect. You're beautiful just the way you are. It's like,
We're
wow,
like,
dude.
I guess so. Like, wow. Like,
Which is
guess it
kind
kinda
of
does
weird,
suck.
right?
yeah.
So we're gonna try to really empathize. That's what real empathy is, right? So sympathy is like expressing pity towards someone. I'm up here, you're down here. Oh, like it's so sad to be you. And empathy is like, yeah, man. Like, I can see how you would feel really bad about yourself. And I think your life has genuinely been very hard. And like, I hope you can cut yourself some slack. Which is different from, no, you're amazing and perfect just the way you are, and you're just too dumb to realize it. Right? Which is like sometimes what that sympathy can feel like. Okay? We ready to go? All
Let's do
right.
it.
Who's checking in?
All right, I'll go. That was I like counted in my head how long. Okay, I was like, all right, I'll go. Um, check-in wise, yeah, still in that middle of that grand transition in my life, with the added epiphanies from last week. So it's actually been heavier this week than I would say otherwise, because not only am I moving, finding a job, all that other stuff, it's like now I'm like, well, I also have to figure out who I am. So it's been some it's been an added like bowling ball to the things I'm juggling. So it feels more like a chainsaw. Okay, so in the homework, we were talking about success and like how we define it for ourselves, and specifically like things that are uh not to do with other people, right? Like success metrics that we look in from ourselves. And this like question paralyzed me for most of the week. And I realized like how much of my guiding principle in success has been based off of using other people or other like validation sources. So like, I'm a competitive person, so me being better than this rank or this person or whatever, it's like the success metric is based off of someone else metrics themselves. So like YouTube numbers and stuff like that, like this many people like this post, this many retweets, this many subscribers, whatever. Like those are again more validation things that come from other people versus myself. Even like status, like money and stuff like that, like it's like society kind of deems that like this is where you're comfortable, this is like how much you need to do XYZ. And so yeah, like basically throughout my entire life, this is like the thing that last week we kind of, I guess, uncovered about myself, was just that, like how much my needs and like the things that I think would be good for me. So like in the end, what I came to with the homework was that like my success has to come from me, which is about like my fulfillment and contentment in my own thing. Like I should do things because like it feeds me, not because it feeds this other thing. And TBH, I'm still not sure where I landed with like what I think is fulfilling to me. The closest thing I could think of was freedom, like a concept of freedom of like, when it comes to like my hobbies that I enjoy doing, like the freedom to be able to pursue them, monetary wise, like the freedom to like, if I want to go out somewhere, I can go do that. Like it's not a principle about like how society views me, but it's just like I want the freedom to be able to do those things for myself. Um, so yeah, that's where I landed.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
I'll go. I'll go. So it's really funny. I wrote down freedom as well.
Shocking.
So, this last week, what have I done? I don't know. It's Thursday. It's been a week. I don't know. I don't know what I've done. I've been extremely easily distracted this week. My ADHD has been like literally the meme. Like I often get annoyed at people for doing the meme of like, ooh, a squirrel about ADHD, because like there's so much other stuff like underneath. But this week I have been ooh, a squirrel. Like just doing one thing, then doing the other thing, and just, yeah. But amongst all of that, I came to a conclusion that I do so many things, or I still have in my mind, like when we first started talking, you know, I said that I just like stopped doing everything, and then I realized half the stuff I was doing content-wise wasn't actually doing anything for me. And then in my mind, I've still like had these ideas of making a channel for this, doing a channel for this, doing a channel for this, doing a channel for this, and like separating everything. And I realized I was doing this to make other people comfortable and not myself. So I feel like being labeled an ASMR creator really put me in this box where I have to constantly be quiet, and I should always be nice, and I should always be kind, and like, yes, you should always try and be those things, but I'm also a human being who can, you know, have all these other ranges of emotion, and by trying to make other people happy, by having a YouTube channel just for ASMR that's this way, and then like some people don't like sound baths, so I made another channel and put sound baths over here. But then some people don't like this format, so I was like, what am I doing? And it was actually my husband who was like, you are doing my head in, because he's going to be my editor. He was like, put it on one channel, stop, what are you doing? You're spreading yourself thin. Like we had some, like, I wouldn't call them arguments, I'd just call them very heated debates about, you know, like, what am I doing and why? And yeah, it was the realization that I was trying to fit myself in lots of little boxes rather than just being me, which is what I kind of joked about like last week, being like, just find your thing and be yourself. And like, yeah, so my success, I wrote for myself, success is feeling happy and motivated in the work that I'm doing, feeling growth and expansion with a space for like joy and happiness in there. When I say growth and expansion, I don't mean like a metric growth. I mean like, you know, just feeling like I'm always learning something, and that there's something, you know, I'm motivated to be like, oh, I've just done that. It'd be really great to now do this, and just that kind of growth within my own mindset and motivation. I put feeling confident in who I am and stable in the content that I'm making, because I think, yeah, like I realized I was just a bit all over the place, and that doesn't feel very stable. And if I don't feel very stable, how are the people that are consuming my content supposed to even feel stable and know what's going on? If I've got like 3 Instagram accounts, 3 YouTubes, 3 TikToks, like why did it? Yeah. Working smart, like I think working like in ways that is maximizing the content that I'm making and the things that I'm doing, you know, that would feel successful to know that I've created something that works, you know, and abundance to be able to invest and grow and have freedom to, yeah, like Zell says, have a holiday, because that would be amazing. Like, not just having holidays, but like if I want to go learn windsurfing, I never want to learn windsurfing. If I want to go, like, you know, just having that freedom, that space to do. And I wrote how others see it. I think other people see it like, oh, you have viewers and subs, so you must be happy, you know. And I actually had a long chat with a friend yesterday who said that, you know, they were like, oh, I see you, and I always just think, oh, look, I wish I could be like Ruby. She's got it all sorted out, and she's got like good sub count, she's got viewers, and like I said, oh, it's really funny, I saw you the other day, and I was like, look at her, she's got it all sorted out. And we were both having like this whole like identity crisis conversation with each other about what we're doing with our content, which was, yeah, I'm lucky I've got someone that I can talk to like that. The outside perception of you having it all together and you're fine, and assumptions that lots of money is being made, like assumptions that because you have the views, because that view count is there. I've had in the past like quite like some aggressively mean people. Oh, you've got the money, you know, you're a Twitch ambassador and you're a Twitch partner and you can afford that. Like, because I jokingly tweeted Blue once because my microphone died after years of abuse and listed all the abuse the poor thing had been through. And like, I got this angry tweet. I've seen you get subs, like, you can buy one. And I was like, okay, are you okay? And yeah, that's it. That's my homework.
Thanks for sharing.
I guess I can go ahead and start rounding out the success homework participants for this week. I mean, I'm not sure if Metric or Zerk did the homework, but let's see. Okay, my check-in this past week. So I've actually gotten out of the house a couple times, which is nice. Met up with a friend or two and just like, you know, getting my mind off of the whole content creation like train, I guess, that just kind of keeps chugging along, you know, because my brain is always like spinning with like, oh, all these different thoughts and ideas. And then it's like actually getting a plan together for those ideas. That's something I still have to work on, but so I got out of the house a little bit, and then I also have just streamed a little bit. Also gotten some plans going for TwitchCon San Diego, which is I'm literally there next week, which kind of feels surreal, but I'm very excited for that. And I honestly didn't get around to writing down stuff for the homework, but as I'm like hearing Zell and Ruby go through their things, I'm kind of just like filling in the blanks of my own definition of success. And I guess what I've kind of come to so far is how I tend to find a lot of success and fulfillment in like the small scale things. Like as much as I like envision these like large scale goals and completing all these these high end things or doing like I don't know, just as much as I like, you know, focus my lens on these goals far out, like it's also just the like little things that are like right in front of me, like getting out of bed or just like talking to someone, like either one of my roommates here in the house or just like, you know, reaching out to a friend and checking up on them. That certainly fulfills me, and it's not that those little actions have any designated purpose towards either myself as a person and my ambitions or my ambitions with being a creator. Success doesn't have to, you know, when I think of success, I kind of think of it broadly. So I don't always think of it within these certain realms, but when I think of it, just in terms of like being a creator, I think of it how I just find success in like saying hello to people, making their day, just engaging in conversations with them, which I don't know. It's something I already do, but I think that's just one thing that like is important to like kind of acknowledge the things that I'm already doing and recognizing them as things that are successful, because it can be easy to lose sight of it when you're so transfixed on something that's like so either far out into the future or something that is going to take time to be achievable. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of my answer for the homework. Like success to me is like something that might not always be something that I think about because it's something that I can, you know, it's like there are aspects that I am already being successful within my life. And I think, you know, it's just something that I can move around, something that's flexible in terms of whether I set on something I'm doing today or something I'm doing down the line. So that's my answer.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
So the last week has been a little bit interesting. From like a non-content created like perspective, I had like I live in a house that's split into 3 apartments, and I'm on the top floor. And so like the first floor folks found a mouse. I guess this is like the time of the year to find a mouse. So they called the landlord. And then the landlord said, "We're doing inspections and we're also going to bring in pest control." And me being pandemic me hermit life for the last, I don't know, 2.5 years, I haven't had people in my space, and it kind of freaked me out. So I frantically scrubbed and cleaned and cleaned and scrubbed, and like I was actually doubting if I was gonna make it to stream last week, even if I didn't hurt myself, because I didn't actually sleep that night. And so I was wondering what I was gonna be like with 0 sleep. And would I have actually been effective? And so the good news is it went really well. And on top of that, I did a bonus thing, which was uh, I didn't just like clean for inspection. I scrubbed my apartment so well that like my streaming space was such a mess that I used to like step into it, not like walk into it, you know? So like it used to be very claustrophobic, and now for the last week of streams, it actually feels like very freeing, like very mentally, like I don't know. It actually feels like my brain feels clean just being in a clean spot. Um and I guess like 2.5 years of pandemic hermit life, um like I kind of just bagged it up and threw it out. And um it just seeing my apartment, like actually seeing floors and seeing walls and seeing and having my cat like have somewhere to like walk around and just be happy, and like if she wants to like walk up to me and chomp on me while I'm streaming, like she can do that now, and she's very happy about that, by the way. It feels damn good. It actually, as far as like a just a side related content creation thing and actually a general life thing, oh my god, um that was necessary. So uh yeah, yeah. But and then like of course I hurt myself because backs are not made to get down on the floor and scrub for, you know, hours and hours on end, and yeah. So besides that, I totally missed the mark on here, but as far as living goes, I did a good job. So I'm proud of that.
Sounds like you used your time very productively, Metric.
I hope so.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for sharing.
I can go next. To answer the 2 parts for check-in, I have some unfortunate news, so I have to find a new place to move into by the end of the year. So that came up last week. So I've been distracted with looking for new places. So I think this is going to put a big pause on streaming for a while because I feel very disrupted. So I'm not in the headspace to do that. Maybe once things are more settled down and I feel comfortable, then I can start streaming. But for now, just shopping around places, trying to envision what my life's like. Every time I enter a new apartment, I'm always spacing it out. Like, is this going to have enough room for my green screen, my table? Making sure it's going to have good lighting, and enough space overall, because this is San Francisco, so it's very expensive here. So I'm just looking at studios right now, and they're like 300 to 500 square feet for like $2,800 plus. So it's kind of like, all right, what's my budget at? I can go for this nice city view apartment, but should I really be doing this? I need to save money. So I've been going through that. Really wanted to go back to streaming once I've unpacked everything and settled down here, but circumstances changed. Um, in terms of what success means to me, I think I kind of navigated my life by, uh, I guess, trying to operate on how much fun I'm having or how happy I feel. I think um, making sure that I feel good, that nothing is kind of intruding my thoughts. To me, that's being successful, even though it seems like such a basic measurement. Of course, there's the other ways to measure success, like having a good job, hitting the right salary, making sure my social support is good relationships with family. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what success means to me.
Okay.
I mean, I could talk about that. I didn't mean to skip that, but a lot of days I feel like success is like not being me. I feel like I wake up and there's like a sense of failure already because I feel like it's too late to do the things that I wanted to do, or I'm in bed and I'm not asleep yet, and that's like something that like it just feels like everything is a fight. But when I see people who are able to like maintain a regular sleep schedule, which is like a basic human function, um, that's success. I I I think about like growing my community. I don't know how big. Like, I mean, you could have like 1,000 viewers, and I thought about it. It was like a lot of people with like really big streams don't even see who just resubbed, and they don't even have like time to thank for that. I don't want to be that. I want to be able, if you did something to help my stream in any way, like maybe I can't read every message depending on how busy chat is, but like I still want to be able to thank a viewer for doing something nice. And when I'm in like a super big stream, and you don't even have time to like say like, "Hey, thanks for the resub. It's been 4 years of subbing." Um like that and that's totally missed. That doesn't feel like actual success. I that feels like, I don't know. That feels like that's not for me. Um it just, I still want to be able to like have a better understanding of like the majority of my viewers who I regularly talk to, and when I ask them how their day was, I'm not just asking them in general. It's because I already know some specifics about their life, and I go through great pains. I actually keep a little book, which I try not to make that sound creepy, but when somebody says something important, like, "Oh, my uncle's sick," like I actually write that down, and then I check the book before stream, so that if they pop in, like I can associate the name and make sure, like, "Oh yeah, how's your uncle doing?" Or um, and that is kind of like not sustainable with a certain size of stream. So, um, and I also, one thing I don't know if anyone else does this, but uh, like I don't technically have a day off. Like I stream 6 days a week, but that seventh day is movie night, so I don't actually ever disconnect from the community. And I think that's like, I don't ever want to lose that. And like the days where I do cancel or like do have to cancel a movie night or something, I feel genuinely bad. But like I do live a life sometimes. Like I do have to go home, or I don't know. Like I live alone. What else am I gonna do? So, um, that's just me. I don't know. I don't know if like only streaming 5 days a week would be success, and then like having that one day where I truly disconnect is success and not feeling bad about it. But that's I don't know how yeah. I don't know if that's actually
Cool.
yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
maybe we can help you figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're here for. So, thank you all very much for your check-in. I'm kind of curious, does anyone have anything that they really want to ask or inquire about or we're curious on? Otherwise, I'll kind of take the reins, but I wanted to open the floor up to y'all first.
I wanted to say to Metric that I used to do pretty much the same as you. Like I'd feel like if I wasn't doing something, then I felt like crap, like from the pit of my stomach. And now I stream 4 days a week, and like I'm not being like, oh, be like me.
Right.
I want you to like. It took me years as well. Like it's not just like, oh, just stop doing this thing. Like it took me like years of changing my schedule and changing things for myself. But when you said that, I felt like sad for you. Like I'm sure you absolutely love your community, and your community are lovely, and I love my community, and we're all going to say the same thing, like we love our communities because they're our people.
Right.
But I'm sure they want you to do something else as well. Like, but yeah, I just wanted to tell you that like I've been there, and I understand that like feeling like absolute crap. I still get it if I have to cancel a day like out of the 4 days that I do now.
Yeah.
So
It's just
it's
that like
still there,
even
but
like mentally, like when I think about it, it's like what would I do on that day that I wasn't actually streaming or talking to my community? I actually don't know. Like what, play a video game for my own entertainment? Like who sits there and plays a video game without talking out loud? I don't know anymore. I don't know that guy. I don't know him.
you're talking to the
So
person that just talks their life out loud, whatever she's doing. So
right.
like,
I'm just really good at narrating playing video games, and like I don't, if I'm sitting alone, like who am I going to talk to? That's weird. That's it, so um
but yeah, I just wanted to let you know that like, yeah,
I appreciate that.
I can understand.
Should we share like thoughts, observations based off of the things that we said, or like are we just because like I guess I want to share I guess like a little bit of what I was thinking as everyone was talking about. It seems like the idea of success to a lot of people is pretty vague, and it kind of boils down to like you know like I mean I don't actually know, right? Like success is we all determine it for ourselves, but as long as like I guess you understand your own what you're saying. And then like Metric, when I was hearing you talk about like your community and stuff too, like I felt like a lot of what you were saying was about the validation that comes from your community and stuff like that. And like I also wonder like if that can be a double-edged sword for you sometimes, if like if it's great to feel good for your community, but it can also feel bad for not doing things for your community. It feels like this kind of like razor's edge that you can be
Right.
standing on.
Like if I
And
stopped streaming tomorrow, what would I be? And I don't know what that is. I couldn't imagine it. It's like it's weird that like it's actually like a symbiotic relationship of they show up to take their minds off their days, because like the mood that I try to foster is school sucks, work sucks, you come home, you put your feet up, and I'll let you veg out for the rest of the night. And that's what I've always strived for. But if I'm not doing that, and if I don't like have those people to have that rapport with, who am I anymore? So yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question. So I'm going to go ahead and take the reins for a second. So last week, I don't know if we remember, but I started out asking questions to Zell for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then y'all sort of took over. If y'all are okay with that, then I'd actually like to ask Kathy a couple of questions. But I want to give everyone a free license to like interrupt me before the 10 to 15 minute mark. And the other thing is that we also need Kathy to be okay with that. Which, you know.
I feel fine.
Okay.
I guess if I'm not comfortable, I'll just say no comment.
Perfect. Right. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that could feel hard to answer.
Okay.
And if they feel hard to answer and you don't feel comfortable answering them, that's totally fine. And also, maybe we can gain something from what makes it hard to answer. So, Kathy, when you were checking in, first of all, this whole moving situation sounds awful. Like, because I almost got the sense that you're just getting unpacked in some way or something.
Yeah, it's been a little over a month.
Oh my God, dude, that sucks. Yeah, it's insane. The 300 to 500 square foot studios for an absurd amount of money. Like, yeah, I have no idea how people in San Francisco survive. Like, how do y'all even?
I think, well, they have higher salaries. So when I moved here from Seattle, Washington, they gave me more money to adjust for the cost of living.
Got it.
But I checked out the minimum, the low income, I think, was 105K for San Francisco.
I mean, it sounds like even a 300 square foot studio eats up a third of that, though. Like,
Yeah.
or more. Like,
Yeah, so there's a lot of trade-offs I have to take. Like, oh, this place is great. And then you go downstairs and look around the neighborhood and you're like, I see why it's so cheap. So I'm just like, do I want the more space with the great amenities, but not feel safe walking around at night, or don't even walk around at night at all? Or do I splurge, but then that might impact me if I want to go back to school or, look into buying a house.
Sure.
So there's a lot of things to consider.
And I noticed that you were kind of saying that success to you sort of means like having fun or feeling like almost happy.
Yeah, because I feel like if I don't, I mean, there's been moments in my life where I've felt very depressed. So I think going forward from that, if I don't feel like that, then it's successful. Then I'm like, oh, I'm fine with enjoying life, feeling good or feeling neutral. I just don't want to be in that headspace again.
Okay. And whereabouts are you nowadays?
In terms of my
Like
mind,
that
how I'm
spectrum.
feeling, I think overall it's good. I would say around 2019 is when it was pretty at the bottom, because that's where I had a breakup. So it was the end of a 7-year relationship. My cat died. And then also because of the breakup, I had to move out. So that's like my benchmark. That's why I feel like I'm okay with handling unexpected life situations like this, because I'm like, okay, well, it's not as bad as that time. That time was pretty hard.
Yeah, that sounds awful. I'm also kind of noticing that a couple people have mentioned relationships today, and also like friendships and isolation and kind of like loneliness. And I'd like to just kind of flag that as a potential topic for discussion if people feel safe about it. Maybe next time we meet, we can talk a little bit about like what are the important relationships in your life and like how are you doing with that? Just a thought. And Kathy, you also said that sometimes I thought you said use the phrase something about like intruding thoughts, or like when thoughts aren't intruding in your head or something like that. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I think I've noticed I have negative automatic thoughts sometimes. So I've been working with my therapist on trying to condition that.
Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit? I recognize that you're working with a therapist about that, but is there something about that you feel comfortable sort of talking about?
Yeah. Um So I don't know, sometimes I just feel like a little bit of despair, or I just don't feel good. Maybe it's anxiety, just something happens and I'm not sure why, because there's no event A to B that I can really trace. Um so I'm just like, okay, I don't know why I don't feel good. I don't feel like I feel super jaded, bored, or just kind of down. So I'm like trying to figure out why this is happening. Maybe it's something I kind of buried, or I don't know, maybe there was a flash of thought and then my negative feelings came out of that. So I'm just trying to get to the root of it. It's kind of hard to track sometimes because maybe I'm in the middle of a task and then that pops up and I don't really know what triggered it. So it's a lot of backtracking.
Sounds really RNG-ish.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know why I feel like this. I'm outside enjoying the weather. It's a beautiful day. San Francisco is nice. But then I feel bad and I don't know why. It's very demotivating. Um, and I'm just like, what's the alternative? I don't know. I just feel weird sometimes. So that's why I kind of reached out to Healthy Gamer a while back, because I think like venting what I was feeling and having someone there who wasn't a friend or anyone else who had any connections to me. I felt like I noticed that I started feeling less of that during that time period, if that makes sense. And I attributed that to talking to someone from Healthy Gamer.
And that's separate from your therapist?
Yeah, the therapist is a recent development because
Okay.
my company gave us extra sessions.
Okay. So I'm going to pause for a second and kind of check in with the group. So, so here's Kathy is. She's shared with us something incredibly private, which is that she's talking to a therapist about that. I applaud you, Kathy, for sharing that, because I do think that we need to destigmatize like seeking treatment for stuff and getting help for these kinds of things. So I really appreciate your courage there. And at the same time, I'm kind of wondering if it's like, if a therapist is talking to Kathy about it, like, can we even help with this? Or is that something that the therapist has to fix? What do y'all think?
I think that there's a possibility that we can have a different insight that may help.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm not like a licensed professional or anything like that, but maybe there's some kind of way that we could still contribute to, the notions, the ideas, the thoughts.
Yeah, what do you think we could, any idea how we could help? It's okay for no one to have a clue.
Because like part of me is like, oh, like, hey, I resonate with this thing and this thing, but just commenting on that, like, I mean, I don't know how um helpful that is, because it's like, oh, okay, this person feels that way too, but
Mm.
w-
I
I don't know.
I kind of had a bit of a question. You said that like you compare everything to like the worst part of your, like what you count as being like your worst time. And I was wondering, like, could that comparison, because I think I've done it as well, like, and I think we've all done it maybe in certain ways. Oh, it's not as bad as that, so I'll be fine, kind of thing. Do you ever think that like sometimes some things happen to you and you feel bad, but you don't allow yourself to process it in that moment and feel bad and acknowledge that you're allowed to feel bad about it? It doesn't matter if it's not as bad as this other time, like, and you're doing that through fear of, like you said, you don't want to feel that way again. You're avoiding processing your initial feelings, and like, this is what it felt like when you were describing it to me. This is what it felt like, and it's what I've done. I've avoided processing my initial feelings because I don't want to feel depressed again, because I felt really bad at that time. So then I just, like, the thing that happened that made me feel bad, I push it away. But then I don't realize until like some time later, because I have exactly the same thing as you. Like, I like
Ruby,
I feel-
pause.
I just, yeah.
Pause.
Sorry.
Let her respond.
Listening. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I could tell you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, to respond to that.
yeah,
I guess I don't really understand what you mean by processing it. Like, is it kind of thinking about the situation, seeing what I could have done better? What does it mean to process? To cry?
Maybe, like, for me personally, this is gonna sound weird and I don't know how to explain it, but just like sitting with it, like actually acknowledging how I feel and how something made me feel. See, you said the word cry and now I start crying.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I'm fine. Like, I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, for me, it's like giving myself space. And if that space is just to be on my own, like to sit with a feeling and allow myself to not even question it. Like, sometimes I don't even question, oh, what could I have done better? It just, yeah. I guess that's something I've learned over time with meditation practice, I guess. I don't really know how to explain what I do. It's just I allow myself to have a void for emotions, like, and then it will pass on, and then I feel better. But I'm not very good at explaining this. I told you I was highly ADHD, and thank you for
you're doing great, Ruby. No, I stopped you for a different reason, which I'll explain in a second. But what do you think about that, Kathy?
I think I kind of what you. I think I know what you kind of mean by processing it. Trying to like sit with whatever happened, think about it, and then even, like I mentioned, cry, which can be cathartic. I guess another interesting to note is I don't think I've cried in a very long time. So maybe I've buried it and then I have coping mechanisms, but I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like what you were describing with everything you've gone through is grief, but if you're saying you haven't cried in a long time, I'm not saying crying is the only way to deal with grief, but between like a long-term breakup, and losing your cat, like those are massive things, right? Like you talk about going outside and not really feeling good, like that's it just sort of sounds like you're when Ruby was talking about processing, I mean, I think that might be what she was really saying is you're not, it doesn't really sound like you're confronting the grief of everything. And it's like it doesn't even just have to be that. I mean, if you just look at the news every day, like there you could just feel bad about that, right? Like even if those things hadn't happened to you, it just feels overwhelming. So um I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you have all these reasons to be upset, but you're not really giving yourself a justification to be upset in a way. Like, you're acknowledging it but not fully. You're not confronting the consequences of it. At least that's what it sounded like to me.
What do you think about that, Kathy?
I guess I'm just having trouble trying to understand how to. I think we just have different ways of processing it. I'm processing things. I'm not being dismissive, but it's just
Yeah,
observation
no,
of myself and of how other people cope
I'm not
with
saying
things.
like crying is the only way, but
Oh,
it
and
just
yeah.
sounds like, like the way you described yourself, it almost sounded like you were numb,
Oh, I do
right?
feel numb sometimes. Yeah.
So that
I was
I don't
gonna
know if
say,
that's the
sorry.
best feeling. Yeah, sorry.
Can I say, like, the word processing maybe isn't the right word? The more I hear you, like, saying it, I'm like, it needs to be replaced with just feeling. Are you allowing yourself to, like, I don't know. It's really hard for me to explain.
Yeah. So remember, how do we get to understanding with the person that we are trying to help? Is it through
Questions.
explanation?
No,
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of a
So-
question to
so
like,
that-
ask.
It's okay. Right? So, like, I'm going to let Smirky and Zell chime in. What are y'all observing happen between Metric, Ruby, and Kathy right now?
Personally, it felt kind of like we were telling like Kathy how to feel about these things a bit, and so like to me, like of course, when we talk about events like our pet dying or a relationship breakup, of course, our association with those events is that they're negative, but also it's upon each individual to take in that grief and how they deal with it themselves. So like it like to me it was like I was hearing like, Kathy, you should be really sad. You should
I'm
be
not-
more
yeah.
sad.
I
Uh,
would
Ma-
not say that.
Metric,
Sorry.
it's totally fine, right? So this
Okay,
is
okay.
exactly what happens in group.
Right.
We slip into, and Kathy's a part of this too, because Kathy's a really good student. Who's asking the questions?
Kathy.
And y'all fell for it, all three of y'all.
Yeah.
And this
I
is-
started with a question, and then my frustration got mixed up.
So did we catch that? Like, this is what's important, right? So this is why it's really important that people are asking questions, people are answering questions, and some of y'all are being silent as the grave, and you're just watching. So we got off track because we started to have some hypotheses. Good. Tried to help. Good. Seems like we kind of started saying things that Kathy was having difficulty understanding, or maybe like she processes differently. Like we're not quite there yet. Right? And we like Zell in that way. Zell's like counters are not as effective as Kathy's. Like when you ask Zell a question, he gets hit by it. Whereas Kathy's like, she's got some jujitsu in there. And so if you're not careful, she's going to ask you questions that will encourage you to teach her. Because anyway, so I'm going to
Because we
stop
want to
there.
help, but like, yeah.
Right? We want to help. She's looking for help. So when you're an East Asian immigrant and you're not doing a great job, what are you supposed to do?
Ask questions.
Ask for help and do the right thing. Have someone explain it to you, right? Like how to get an A+ on the math class. So Kathy, you doing okay?
Yes.
Can we keep going?
Yes.
Kathy, do you feel cursed?
Cursed?
Yeah.
No, I do not feel cursed.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. So like, here's what I'm envisioning. Here's where that question comes from. I know it's kind of a weird question. So there you are. Beautiful day in San Francisco, California. Weather is perfect every single day. You're out there having a good time. No reason to be upset. And the RNG rolls poorly, and then suddenly you're kind of feeling bad. What's that like for you?
It's frustrating. I feel a little helpless because I don't know how to fix it or where it even came from.
And how does it feel to be in a situation where you don't trigger anything bad, you don't know where it comes from, and it just comes and fucks up your day?
How do I feel about that?
Yeah. What's it like being you?
I'm frustrated. So like I said, I try to fix it. So maybe I'll reach out to someone or change what I'm doing at that moment. Maybe like go read something, play games, just do something to distract me from whatever I'm feeling.
So I'm almost wondering, like, that sounds kind of awful to me. Like, and the reason I maybe I made a mistake in sort of asking you this, but like, I'm putting myself in your shoes for a moment, and I'm imagining that if that happened to me, I would kind of feel cursed. I'm not trying to convince you that you feel that way, by the way. I'm just sort of sharing with you my thought process, which is like, because it's like, why do you have to do that? You know what I mean? It's like, why can't you just have a good day without this crap happening to you? Like, how do you make sense of that?
Can't.
What's that like?
Is this a question?
Yeah.
Very silent. Oh.
I was just wondering, what's that like? You don't have to answer it if you don't have an answer.
I don't know. I think that's just life. I just gotta deal with it. I don't know why my brain chemicals are making me feel this way. Maybe something underneath it all. But yeah, that's just life. Gotta deal with it.
How do people feel hearing Kathy say that?
I mean, it's tragic. I think, right? I mean, I totally understand how that feels when I was put on bipolar meds for a while in college because I was in a very similar state where like I couldn't like stop depressive thoughts that would insert themselves into everyday life, and so I like was just searching for anything to help it stop. And so like I and like the it's just life thing, like yeah, I don't know, I just think it's tragic. Like I would hope for all of us that like we can live our lives without having intrusive negative thoughts that insert themselves in happy moments, right? Like that's just my opinion. So I wonder if like for you, like that, if that's the answer you've come up with because it's been so hard, because it sounds like you've been searching for answers and it's been really difficult. But I'm curious, like, wouldn't you prefer it if it wasn't that way?
I think going back to the whole comparison thing, there was that moment with the breakup and the cat. And then before that is another worse moment where I think it was major depression. And then I'm just like, at least it wasn't as bad as that. So I think that is what helps put a band aid on it. Because I definitely felt worse then. Then was when I was actually seeking out a psychologist and had very, very bad thoughts. So I think that helps me carry on through my day.
I feel like Zell's kind of like, but wouldn't you prefer if it didn't have to be that way?
I mean, yeah, I would love to not feel that way, but I don't know. I just feel like it's always going to be a journey of trying to manage it, trying to cope, which is why I said I think that's just how life is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So when Zell said that so I'm kind of curious, Kathy, when as we were asking you these questions, and by the way, actually, let me start with this one, and I hope you feel comfortable answering it. Did I overstep? Do you think I said anything that was hurtful? You're allowed to say that, right? Was this uncomfortable for you? Do you want to like stop and never fucking do this again, which is totally fine?
For me,
Yeah.
no, this is not uncomfortable at all.
Okay. How did you feel throughout that conversation? Like when I was asking you these questions and I was like, kind of feel, and when Zell was like, it kind of feels tragic. Like, what was going on within your being, whether it's thoughts, emotions, other sensations, while you were listening to Zell say that, hearing my questions?
I guess when Zell said that it sounds tragic, I didn't feel like it was a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, I keep going back to the other events in my life. That was tragic.
Yeah.
That was tragedy.
Yeah, it's like, Zell, you haven't heard about tragedy, bro. Right? Which I think it's useful to do. I'm kind of wondering though, do you think, okay, well, let me just think Can I think for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Are you worried that you're going to slip back there?
Am I worried? Maybe. But then that's why I'm trying to live my life, building up safety precautions, like, making sure I have a stable job so I don't lose like my home out of nowhere and have not like and be worried about money. Um Having enough money to help support my family if they get into situations. Building up some savings. If I get a pet and it dies again, then I don't know. I mean, I'll be very sad, but it's just life.
I'm noticing that life is anything but carefree for you.
Well, life can be beautiful. It's just it has its ups and downs. I've acknowledged that. It can't be always happy, even though I want it to be. I just got to deal with the bad shit as it comes along. Try to mitigate it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the group a hard question. So what was the question that I asked Kathy? And what was the response that y'all saw?
So the question that you asked was, are you worried that... Sorry, for some reason I'm blanking on the second half of the question, but I remember the first part that was really important was, are you worried? And the response that I saw was like, oh, maybe, I guess, I don't know, it's just life.
Did anyone catch the second half of the question? Oh, sorry, Smirky. Did you have more to say?
No. Absolutely, Zell, go for it.
Oh, I mean, unless if I'm also misremembering it, just slipping back into the place that we're like saying is like the bad place, right? Or if there's a second part to that, then I missed that as well.
So here's what I noticed. I asked Kathy, is your life carefree?
Oh, that.
And do y'all remember what Kathy did and said?
She didn't give you a straight answer.
Certainly.
Yeah.
It was
Right?
it seemed very like I don't know if deflective is too extreme of a word, but it definitely didn't seem...
So the first thing she did was laugh, which Kathy doesn't do very often. Right? She laughed and she's like, life has its ups and downs. You just have to mitigate against the bad. And so now, like, what I'm hearing from Kathy is like, holy crap, dude. It's like, y'all played those like zombie apocalypse games where you have like one day to build and then like the waves start coming and like they're going to come. Right? Like all you can do is like minimize the damage. It's like one of these survival scenarios where like every minute that goes by, like something's going to come, right? And so it's like, it's preparation. Kathy, what I'm hearing is that you live your, like, whatever the RNG is, we can't control that. But what we can absolutely control is how prepared we are when the shit hits the fan. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Is that kind of how you go through life?
Yes.
What's it like to go through life like that?
I don't know. Like, I think I feel good most of the time. Like I said, there's those RNG depressive moments. I'm not really worried about my future. I don't know.
So here's, what do y'all think about this? Like, are we kind of, so we care about Kathy, right? Are we okay with Kathy going through life like this? It seems to be working for her.
What should I change?
I don't think I'd be coping as well, which is why I'm concerned, but that's me. So
Okay, Kathy's got a great question, but we're not going to let her jump. You see what she did? The little jujitsu.
Yep.
What should I change? Tell me how to make it better.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like it's like a matter of like how you view life philosophically, you know, like if your value rank, I guess, like if you were to stack your values, if you value like safety preparation over say like being carefree, you know, like I can understand where you're coming from. So really like from my point of view, it sounds like depending on how satisfied you are with your status quo is whether I'm okay with it, right? Because like in my case, like if you are dealing with what you're dealing with and it seems to work for you and you're not feeling pain or suffering from it, like it feels like it'd be wrong for me philosophically to be like, no, 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 you're doing it wrong. This is how you should live your life, you know? And so like on one hand, I'm like, yeah, it seems tragic, but like also if it works for you and it's like you know and you I don't know if it works for you, like I don't know what I'm supposed to say about that, you know? Like I feel like if you felt like that mode was bad or something, or you really wanted to get out of that loop, then you know it feels different. I don't know.
No one talk except for Zell. I mean, sorry, no one talk except for Kathy. We're just gonna let Kathy sit with what Zell said. Let's see what she does.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of perspective. I seem to have an understanding that maybe some people think my life is very stressed out because I don't know, preparing, or I don't feel as carefree. But I guess in my perspective, I would disagree with that. I think my life is carefree. I mean, I said before, to me, success is like how happy I am, how I'm feeling good. Um, I guess I think I'm also lucky that even though I have a like 9 to 5 job, it's in something that I really like in the gaming industry. So I think that really helps to, um, I guess, elevate.
Makes a lot of sense, right? I'm hearing that Kathy has a lot to be grateful of for. So
Yeah.
she's
I didn't have a job before.
she's
Now I have a
capable,
job.
she's hardworking. The zombies may come, the RNG may come, but she's taking so many steps to actually like build the life that she wants to. She's seeing a therapist now. Worked with us apparently a little bit. Has a job that she enjoys. Sometimes shit happens, right? You have to move. SF is expensive. There's some range there. She's calculating risks. She's being prudent. She's thinking a little bit about like other factors like, you know, can I stay in my place or do I want to be able to walk around outside? How do I balance potential like future education? Like she's weighing a bunch of things and she's chugging along. You know, taking a third base, taking a fourth, taking a fifth, one step at a time.
Make drones.
Making drones, spore crawlers behind the mineral line, like, you know, just making sure that all your bases are covered.
The StarCraft way.
Right? It's also the Kathy way. What do y'all think about that?
Like Zell said, if that's Kathy, but for me, that sounds stressful. Like, but like Zell said, it's perspective of if that's what yeah, it's hard to comment on if.
Kathy, let me step in. Actually, maybe I shouldn't stop you talking because. Let me give this a shot, okay? So Ruby, but like Kathy said, like to you it sounds stressful, but the key thing here is that Kathy isn't you. She's a different person. And as she said, right? It sounds like people think this is stressful. Like I don't think it's stressful. This is just how I live. It's how I've learned to cope or adapt. And let's be clear that it's not like my coping and adaptation is like made my life devoid of joy. Right? Kathy, is your life devoid of joy?
No.
Right? She's got a cool job, Sure, it's expensive, but SF is like an amazing place to live. Climate is awesome. She's out there taking walks. She's like pretty good about like balancing like work and streaming and stuff like that, right? She's not overtaxing herself. Sounds pretty sweet.
I wish I could stream more.
Okay.
Because I was gonna ask, like, are you truly complacent with just having all your bases covered, as I know Dr. K said a moment ago with having all your bases covered, but like, or because I would imagine like for a lot of us, like we, there's something more that we all want to like strive for, right? And I guess in Kathy's case, it is like, I want to stream more. So I guess that's why the question in my head was just like, oh, like, are you truly complacent with like having all your bases covered? If that makes sense.
I guess not, because I'm ambitious. So, I want to get promoted. I want to see better things come along for me in life. And to the whole stressful factor, I guess I'll share that. I think I'm good at dealing with stress. It's very exciting to me.
That does sound like a exciting ambition.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Like Ruby's like, what on earth? Like earlier we're talking about emotional processing, and Ruby's like, you just have to sit there and like have like, what does that mean? And then Kathy's like, stress is exciting. Ruby's like, what the?
I'm like, no, put it in a bin bag.
Yeah, right. So this is what's cool. Is like maybe Kathy can share something, because we've all been operating that, oh, stress is bad, and Kathy's like, no, I thrive on this shit. Go ahead and try to drop my mineral line. See what happens. So the interesting thing, I don't know if y'all kind of noticed, but like we played around a little bit, and now Kathy's like, I get the sense we're kind of getting a little bit more from her. Because let's try to recap. What can we help Kathy with? So it's not what we think she needs. What does she tell us she needs? I can think of 3 things. These are hard, right? So I spent years paying attention to conversations. But what have y'all heard? What do y'all think she needs help with?
Not falling back into the bad place.
Okay.
Streaming more.
Streaming more. We'll talk about the bad place in a second. What else?
Figuring out the move in 3 months.
Sure.
One thing that's in my head is like framing the questions to not be how do I fix it, but maybe you have any insight on like, I don't know, asking about like, instead of like looking for a solution, asking for like the problem aspect, like how do I word this? It's like, instead of always looking like just for the answer, it's kind of like, instead of looking for the answer to like a problem, like asking for like, what kind of, how do you find that solution? And then, oh, maybe I can learn something from how other people find that solution. Does that make sense? Instead of just like asking like, oh, like, what do I need to change? Like, how do I get there?
So I think we can build on that. So now I'm going to ask y'all a couple of questions, okay? So I think that's what we're going to do in practice, Smirky. So Kathy says she's ambitious. Y'all think she's happy with where she is right now?
I want to say neutral.
I don't know. I think ambition could be trying to find a livable place in San Francisco. So that's, I mean, I live in Toronto. I understand stupid housing prices. And I want out. I don't have that ambition to survive here anymore. So
I mean, well, we need to ask her about it, right? Like, I feel like I feel like Kathy, when you have spoken to us, you have told us how like you're doing great and everything. But like, I'm curious, like, how do you feel about it? Because I feel like you've kind of convinced me anyways that like it seems like you're doing great. And it sounds like you have this life motto that you abide by, but then yeah, you kind of left this hanging thread of like, well, I'm ambitious, and it's like, well, okay, so like what you want more out of your life. So I'm curious like what that is for you.
Uh, I guess ambition to me is probably getting promoted, getting more money, getting more opportunities. Um, Having a house would be nice. Having shelter.
Do you feel like anything that you're doing now is directly impacting your ability to get to those things?
Mm. Yeah, maybe those down moments. Sometimes I'm just like in bed for like 2 to 3 hours and I'm just like doom scrolling on my phone. This is when I'm not feeling good. And I'm like, well, I could have been streaming for 3 hours, could have been talking to people, playing games, or having one-on-ones with folks about my career. So I hate those moments. So inefficient.
Do you I mean, I think you've already answered this before, but and those moments just kind of come up for you kind of randomly, right? It's not like they're from anything. It's not like something like happens with it, right? So,
I don't think I see a pattern. I think the latest one that I did track was, I think I was thinking about like my entire life. Like, oh, am I gonna have a family? Am I gonna have like a kid? I'm gonna settle down. And then I started feeling terrible after that. I was like, oh, maybe that was just way too much to process. And I was just like in a bad mood afterwards. I'm like, okay. It just seems overwhelming because that's a lot to just take in one go.
makes sense. I mean, so I guess going back to Dr. K's thing, like I I feel like you generally are doing great, but things could be better, and it sounds like some of these things that like overcome you are yeah, like you said, overwhelming. So if I guess like because you spend a lot of your time in kind of like preparation and fortifying mode, like how much of that energy that you put into fortifying, like if there was an easier way to do it so that maybe you would be able to access, the energy to handle those overwhelming moments. I don't know. That's
I have a
But-
question.
No, wait, Ruby.
Sorry.
Kathy.
like I'm curious for you, Kathy, like if that would make sense to you.
Um, Sorry, can you rephrase that?
So basically, what you just told me was that like thinking about these things, the future is overwhelming, and so my question is, do you feel like if you had more energy devoted into solving these bigger future things, that like you could take some of the energy that you're using now fortifying your defenses in order to access some of those overwhelming things, if that makes sense. Like, do you feel like, I mean, I know energy isn't this like zero sum thing, but like, would you feel that, like, I don't know, maybe it's zero sum, but like, took in, if you'd spent less time like continually fortifying, maybe you'd have more energy to pursue the things that you felt like, you wanted to reach, I guess.
Mm,
Or they wanted the same for you. I don't know.
I think they're one and the same to me.
Okay.
So building spore crawlers is taking a fourth.
It's making sure you don't die to your opponent's harass, so you can't take that fourth.
Right? Does that answer your question, Zell?
I think so.
So, Ruby, you had a question?
I'm gonna ask, and it may sound like it's not related, but when you said like, oh, so inefficient, that like just hit me. And do you find it hard to relax? Like, do you find it hard just to have time, like, to be like, okay, I'm gonna just sit and watch this movie, or I'm just gonna Like, do you find it hard to relax?
Mm, I think I can relax. Like I've been watching shows and genuinely enjoying it, snacking. I'm very gripped by the show. Can get into it. Uh, and I do take vacations sometimes. I'm like, oh, I feel like that was a lot, so I'll go to Vegas and party or whatever.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask hard questions. All right. Kathy, how are you feeling about today?
I feel good.
Okay. So,
It's a unique situation.
yeah. So we're going to learn a little bit about group dynamics, and then I've got some thoughts to share with y'all, okay? So first question is, Ruby sometimes asks Kathy a question, okay? Now, this is not an indictment of anyone. This is just so we can understand about communication. Ruby's like, can you relax? What's Kathy's answer?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. It's like, Kathy, are you numb? No, like, I feel like I cry. I just haven't cried in a while, but like, I'm doing all right. Ruby's like, oh my God, that sounds so stressful. And Kathy's like, bring it on. And then when Zell talks to her, she's like, I'm ambitious. I'm not achieving what I want in life. I could do better. I'm inefficient. Right? The stuff that Ruby latches onto comes from a response from Zell. So what is Zell saying? What does he say to Kathy? Does he say, hey, I think you need to be less numb? Zell's like, hey, I think you're doing fine. It sounds like you're doing fine. Sounds like you're doing great. And then what does Kathy do? No, I could do better. Do y'all see that? So we have to, right? Because like Zell was like, look, if it works for you, it works for you. That's where Kathy's like, we got to be super careful, okay? And I hope it's okay that I'm pointing this out, Kathy, if this makes you feel like you're under a microscope or something. Do you notice the differential way that like you're responding to these different kinds of communications? Does it feel different to talk to Zell or Ruby? We're not saying one is better or worse.
It feels different.
Right? How does it feel when you're like Zell is like talking to you and when Ruby's talking to you?
I think Zell might come from a similar place. So he's trying to understand where I'm going at. And then I think Ruby and I, we're just different at processing things.
Sure. Right?
So she's trying to understand like how I just do things.
So perfect. So like this is totally fine. It's not better or worse. This is the whole point of having a group, is that people are going to approach each other differently. We're going to find different kinds of resonances. And then like, y'all remember what Ruby said at the end of last session when it comes to Zell? She's like, I didn't think I had anything in common with this person. And now I feel like I understand him in a way that like I hadn't before. So we can absolutely get there. And I think all the things that Ruby sees can help Kathy in some way. We'll get there too. But not yet. Okay? So here's what we're going to do going forward. So first of all, let's try to like recap. I'm going to just, for the sake of time, because we're 5 minutes over already, I'm going to try to recap how I would like us to help Kathy. Now, this is what I want. So Kathy's allowed to say, I don't need that help. Okay? Kathy's ambitious. But fucking A, these RNG like power outages make it so that she's like doom scrolling for 3 hours instead of like moving forward the way that she could. So I'm imagining in Kathy's mind, there's two paths. There's like, she's like playing the game of life with really bad ping, right? So things are just delayed and it's not efficient. And she like wants to do particular things, but she can't bring herself to do them because of the stupid RNG crap. She's excellent at setting up coping skills. She's excellent at preparing for the worst, despite the fact that she's had a couple of really, as she describes it, tragic experiences she's managed to carve out a life for herself. And I don't doubt that that was trench warfare for her. Right? Like, it was not easy to get to where Kathy got. And she's doing well. And at the same time, there are a couple things like she wants to be more ambitious. If we really pay attention, she thinks about it a lot. Right? Why is she doesn't want to spend an extra $200 a month? Because she's thinking about going back to school. What if she gets further education, goes get, who knows, gets an MBA, like whatever. Like, she's thinking about, if we pay attention, she's thinking about how to position her life to, like, you know. I do think there's something to explore there about spore crawlers versus hatcheries. And she's right that you can't get, you know, that you get your mineral line dropped, it's hard to expand, whatever. But I do think we sniffed out something there where there may be an efficiency to be gained. Is she building 4 and she can get away with 2? So we may be able to help her there. Key thing to remember is if we want to get Kathy to talk, we gotta be really careful about it. Because we gotta jujitsu her instead of letting her jujitsu us. When we tell her she's got a problem, she's like, no, I don't. And when Zell is like, hey, you don't have a problem, she's like, yes, I do.
Why am I here?
Right? So it's like some people, you gotta take a step back. Kathy's quiet. So unless we give her a vacuum, she's not going to fill the space. We learned this on week 1, that we got to ask Kathy questions. Now it's like a little bit like, we're going to tell Kathy, hey, Kathy, I think you're doing great. She's going to be like, yeah, but, because she's good, right? She's resilient. She knows how to practice gratitude. She's genuinely been in some hard situations, right? So each of us has strengths, weaknesses. We have to try to figure out what she needs and how we're going to help her get there. Last thing is she said, I don't know the root of where this comes from. Where the fuck are these medevac drops coming from? Where is this base? She scouted the whole map and she has no idea. They just spawn out of nowhere. And so one thing that we can think long and hard about, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it over group, but we can try to help her understand. And this is where, like, we're going to need Ruby, we're going to need Metric, we're going to need Smirky. Because y'all are picking up things. I don't think y'all are wrong in what you're sniffing. But we're going to have to be, like, super subtle. Like, we're going to have to try to figure out, you know, like, where is the root of this? Because is it RNG? There was recently an interesting meta-analysis that was published that suggested that even major depressive disorder is not due to a neurochemical imbalance. It's like, you know, who knows? But I think that, you know, we're going to try to help her. Like, we're going to help, like, if for nothing else, like, we don't have to help her process emotion. If that's, like, it's like, okay, how are we going to get you? Like, what does ambition mean to you? What would you wish you did more? What gets in the way of doing it? And Kathy's going to love it because it's like solutions. Right? Kathy, do you want us, how do you feel about us helping you be more ambitious or capitalize on the ambition that you feel? Sounds what?
Sounds good.
Okay. So she decides what kind of help we need. And then we tried, right? Zell was stumbling around with that question for a while, which is totally good. I think there's more to that, Zell. But we're going to have to get more sophisticated in our communication and in our understanding of Kathy. Gazelle, you know what you were thinking. That was a hypothesis-driven question, bro. Because you know, y'all connect. Y'all have some very similar, like, ambition, not living up to ambition, like, you know. And that's true of all of us, right? We've all probably felt that way. So we're going to start to use Zell a little bit, but that's okay. And now we'll sort of bring everyone in. I really, really hope from the bottom of my heart that no one felt criticized. I think it's just different styles and places. Everyone is going to help everyone else. And it's just natural that human beings will resonate on different wavelengths. And just like it took 3 weeks for Zell and Ruby to resonate, because they had a big opportunity for a lot of back and forth, we're going to get to that same resonance with everybody. We'll get there. It's just about sort of thinking a little bit about who's ready for what right now. Right? Because I'm sure Ruby has hypotheses too, things that she sees, which over time we'll get to the importance of that. Last thing I want to acknowledge is that, we sort of left metric out in the cold a little bit.
No, I understand exactly why we needed to do this. So,
okay, so I appreciate that metric. I won't continue there. The last thing that I want to talk to y'all a bit, I'm going to share just a little bit of just like science and research. So, when we were talking about the homework from last week, we talked about how like Zell used to tell us all the stuff that he could be doing, right? But he came back this week and he said, I want to focus on freedom. I'm just picking freedom. I noticed that Smirky and Ruby both talked about different kinds of values as well. Ruby was talking about freedom, motivation, growth. Smirky was talking about like small goals versus large goals and like really focusing on the small, and not so much worrying about the big. So here's the really interesting thing. In life, there's pain and there's pleasure. A lot of us gravitate towards pleasure and try to move away from pain. This is how we function, right? Because pain is bad and pleasure is good. The challenge is that a lot of what we want to accomplish isn't pleasurable. That if you really want to like succeed, whatever that means, that you have to sort of embrace pain and not like run away from pain. It's our avoidance of pain that gets us into a lot of problems. So there's some really interesting research that shows that acting in accordance with your internal values is how we willingly choose the path of pain. So like, all of y'all have done stuff that sucks and you've done it willingly. And why have you done it willingly? Because it matters to you. You sometimes choose the hard path because you care about someone, because you love someone, because you love a pet. Like, you'll wake up in the middle of the night and go to the emergency room if your cat is ill or whatever, right? We'll do all kinds of unpleasant things for things that align with our values. And the more that we discover what our values are and the more that we align our lives with our values, the more we're like suddenly pleasure and pain don't matter if you're doing something that's aligned with your values. This concept in Sanskrit is called dharma or dharma. And interestingly enough, has been scientifically validated as well. So if you look at like research on addiction treatment, what you discover is that in order to get someone to overcome like a heroin addiction or a crystal meth addiction, which are strong biological drivers of behavior, you have to align the treatment, not have to, but it's very effective to align the treatment with people's values. So you can tell someone, hey, if you keep on using crystal meth, you're going to lose all your teeth. Like you can say that to them, but that's not actually going to stop them from using crystal meth. Fear is not a sufficient thing to overcome addictions, usually. What matters is like asking these people like, what do you want from your life? So I once had a patient, for example, who I was trying to get them to quit smoking. And I explained to them that if you smoke, you're going to get heart disease, you're going to get lung cancer and things like that. And then like I kept on trying to scare the student. I'm like, bro, don't you understand? Like you're going to get lung cancer. And he's like, no, yeah, I understand. I promise I'll quit. Didn't quit. So then I started talking to the guy. I was like, what do you care about? I didn't ask that, but I was like, tell me a little about yourself. So he's got 2 daughters, loves his daughters, right? Prides himself on being a good dad. Daughters love him. One day I asked him a question. I was like, when you walk your daughters down the aisle and they're getting married, do you want to be wheeling an oxygen tank behind you? And he was like, so we have to align things with our values. There's also something called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a scientifically validated form of therapy that sort of builds on this, sort of suggests that the more we align things with our values, the better off we'll be. So, I think this direction that we're kind of moving in is going to be like really, really important. I do think we've got some work left to do, especially for Metric and Kathy, in terms of figuring out what their values really are. I think we're sort of getting there, especially with Kathy, because we sort of know what she wants, right? But we like have to understand more, because she's got to have a good reason to put down the phone. And wanting thus far has been insufficient for her. Do y'all get that? Kathy, do you feel judged if I say something like that? How would you... Maybe? Good. So thank you for being honest, right? So what I would love it if we could help you do is have something within you that you've cultivated that helps you put down the phone. How do you feel about that?
I could try it.
Okay. We're going to try. We have no idea. Okay, questions before we wrap up?
Not really a question, but sometimes with navigating these conversations, I feel like I'm trying to hit a nail with like a, like a big old cartoon hammer. Like I don't have a precise enough like toolkit in my observational / like conversational skills to like attack the thing that I'm seeing. And so I feel like, yeah, I'm doing surgery with a katana, like that's how it feels. So I'm just hopefully we get to a point where we can be more precise about things.
Yeah, so we're going to develop that precision by paying attention, right? And we kind of focused a little bit on Kathy today, but like it's not like she's like secretly numbing everything and like, oh my God, like that's not what this is about. It's not about finding whatever is the soft underbelly that she's protected with 1,000 spore crawlers, right? It's about like recognizing that this is a human being who is resilient, courageous, intelligent, driven. She's had to adapt to survive, just like the Zerg. And we're going to try to understand who she is. We're going to understand what she wants. And we're going to try to do our level best to help her understand herself and get to where she wants to go. That's why we're here. And so that's where, like, if you've got a big cartoon hammer and you want to be more sophisticated, you need more intelligence. No, I mean, not like reconnaissance. I don't mean like IQ points. I mean like recon, right? So we have to understand things better. And Kathy demonstrated beautifully today that she'll point us in the right direction, right? We'll ask a question. She'll be like, yeah, actually, I don't feel that way. Awesome. So let's discover together what does get in the way. Okay? So, homework. I have homework for Kathy. We can all do this, but I'm open to other suggestions. But for Kathy, what I'd really love to learn is when you say you want to be more ambitious, what does that mean? What is, if you could wave a magic, not more ambitious, but you said you're ambitious. And what does that like look like? You shared some stuff with us, right? Like having a home that is stable, that you don't have to be forced to move. But like, what, like if you could accomplish your ambitions, like what would that look like? What is like, and this inefficiency that you have, if you were inefficient, what would you do? I'm curious whether that piece of homework resonates with other people or not.
It does for me. Like, what would I do if I was, inefficient? Like what, whether I'm like doom scrolling on my phone or whatever. So I don't know how the rest
invert
of it
it?
feels.
Like,
Sure.
Could I talk about what would I do if I was efficient?
Sure. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like if you were more efficient, like what does that look like?
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
I may have misspoken. That's what I was sort of thinking.
Less inefficient, more efficient, tomato.
Right. All right, misheard. It's okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Zell, Ruby, y'all on board? Or if it doesn't resonate with you, you can't think of something else, you're welcome to just skip for week 2, right? So it's just do what you find is helpful.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Any last closing thoughts? Okay.
Just
Uh,
thank you for
F-
your time.
and have fun at TwitchCon for everyone who's going.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it.
And be safe.
Yeah. So if people are going, we'll see who's going. Maybe we can just communicate in our group DM and at least say hi to each other. And Ruby, you had mentioned that you may be doing a sound bath today. Is that still on?
Yeah.
And so
I
can
got it already.
okay, can I raid you?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll raid you in about 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Kathy. My honest appreciation for putting yourself up on the altar of scrutiny today. I hope it wasn't too much, and you're welcome to give us feedback privately afterward if it was, or even to people like Hannah or whoever if we overstepped. Okay.
No, this was great.
Okay. And then someone's going to be on the chopping block next. Like if Ash shows up next week, she's in trouble. No, but so I think actually we may be taking next week off because of TwitchCon. So I think we
will
may
be,
be meeting in
yes.
2 weeks. Okay.
2 weeks.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So I saw that someone had said like, hey, we should do this with a group of like HG community members. And it's like, that's literally what group coaching is. So we've done this with like thousands of people. We just don't stream it, right? So these are content creators. So it's a little bit different, right? Because they're already in the public eye and things like that. So, and it's a little bit, the format is also a little bit different, but if y'all are interested, like that's like literally what we do in group coaching is we have conversations where we point things out to each other. We explore with each other. We learn about each other and we try to help each other. And as y'all saw today, a lot of it, like we think we have everything figured out, right? So even when you talk to someone, you can look at them and you can say like, oh my God, I can see exactly what's going on. This person is too numb. They're not emotionally processing. They need to emotionally process. But that's from our perspective. And that's precisely why advice doesn't work. Right? People give each other advice all the time, but like advice does not transform lives. Like you just don't go and tell like 1,000 people who are addicted to nicotine, hey, stop smoking. It'll be really good for you. If those 1,000 people don't drop it, can it be helpful? Absolutely. Is educational helpful? Absolutely. But if you want to change, things need to be tailored to you. And that's where group work is really interesting because we get to, I don't know if y'all can kind of tell, but like, even if an expert talks to you about something, having a peer who has lived through what you've lived through and has kind of been in your shoes can actually be effective in a different way. So coaching is not by any means a substitute for therapy. And we really believe that. Like I'm telling you, as a therapist, it's a completely different ballgame. Peer support, which has been the UN, the World Health Organization, the US Surgeon General, all three of these institutions have recognized the value of peer support. In calls to action, especially around mental health, they've talked about, hey, like we need more peer support services. And we see this in addictions because you can have the best trained psychiatrist if you're addicted to alcohol. But if they've never been addicted, there's a certain element of them being able to help you that they can't provide. And so if you go to an AA meeting with someone who's been like struggling with alcohol for 20 years and now has been sober for 20, they can help you in a way that no psychiatrist will be able to. This is the value of the peer support model. And so y'all maybe even saw that today, right? Where like Ruby knows a ton about emotional processing, emotional awareness, super high EQ. And yet, what we really saw today is a resonance between two people who understood each other as peers, right? And even though they understand each other, Zell is still inching Kathy in a different direction, right? So expertise is not always sufficient. And this I've seen like firsthand as, as a psychiatrist. It's like, there's just some stuff that I'm never like, especially when I work with clients who are women, it's like, I'm never going to know what postpartum depression feels like. Never going to know that. And so my ability to help a woman through postpartum depression, which I've done time and time and time again, I've done a good job and I've helped a lot of people. But even as a psychiatrist, you have to understand the limits of your experience. I have to understand, to do my job ideally, that I will never know what this person goes through. And so that's the value of the peer support model. Anyway, great points all. I know that this is a little bit different from our most of our usual content, which is totally fine. Right? We're doing this to illustrate that change, because I think one thing that we've made a mistake in actually here at HG is we sometimes make it seem easy to change. Like if you watch some video and like Dr. K is giving a lecture about gifted kids, it's like, oh my God, I understand myself now. It's not like every person who watches that video is like their life is completely transformed tomorrow. Do they make progress? Do they have catharsis? Sure. But it's a long road and change is hard. And that's why like when we do outcome measures for coaching programs, like we don't look at 1 week. We look at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks. And that's when we really see change. This like sustainable change that affects how people start looking at life, living life, how they make decisions. And so change takes time. And we realize that we're actually like so almost making a mistake in the sense that we have single conversations and we're not really demonstrating how change can take time. So hopefully y'all enjoyed it. And let's head over to Ruby for a sound bath. Oh, let me see if I can do this. Oh boy. Nope. GG. GG. Let's see if we're... no, I think saved. Saved. All right. Raid. Ruby. True. All right, let's head over to Ruby's channel for a sound bath, and we'll see y'all tomorrow with a regular stream, okay? So take care, everybody. Have a nice day. Thank you all for coming, and adios.